Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
Boston Rob and Amber are gonna do it.
This is a business trip, as I like to say.
You Brad Culpepper.
I'm tired of you and the fucking chicken.
You can call me the puppet master. They can be my little puppets.
It's not like you make me feel the devil here.
You get to milk your own milk, I guess.
We got enough rocks here, too. We could build a pretty decent shelter just using rocks.
I'm supposed to talk loud.
Direct from Hobart, it's time for the only Survivor podcast in Australia dedicated to Survivor, bringing you today's interviews, episodes, and opinions from the greatest reality show on the planet. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Survivor Oz, Australia's favourite podcast that has the word Survivor and Oz in it. We're back for yet another episode. And this one is one of those conjoiny ones again. It's Oztopsy and Oz show. Because of schedulings and because we suck. But hey, we're still at least getting one episode out there. So it's like the good old days of Worlds Apart and Cambodia when we only used to do one episode. Don't we all miss those days? But I am joined, not with Colin this week. Colin's gone. But three different Ozlets. Who are all stars of the Ozlet show, but I guess they're kind of crossing over now into the Oztopsy. Joining me from New Zealand, it is the future host of Survivor New Zealand. It's Nook Chester. Nook, welcome back.
Hello. I don't know if I'd say I was a star since I've only been on one episode of the Ozlet show, but I'll title anyway.
Well, I'll give you a kind of insight that I haven't actually listened to all of them, so... shame on me. Yeah. Well, it's not as bad as when Colin admitted that he doesn't watch the challenges some weeks, but still manages to bluff his way through discussions. But also two others from a completely different continent. It is the future host of Survivor Utah, Alec. Alec, welcome back.
This is Survivor Utah. I didn't hear about that.
Well, there you go.
Me and Jenny will be on it, you know.
Yeah, Jonas, isn't he from Utah?
Yeah, we got Jonas, Sierra. I could
Nalia,
Angie. Another one.
Sounds like a good season.
I know. Talk about entertainment.
Yes. First podcast since, what was it? Amazing Race finale.
Amazing Race finale that we've done together.
Yeah, because somebody ditched the Amazing Race Oz, and I'll give you a clue, it wasn't Alec. Shame on me.
Well, I did
also
someone else on the yeah. It was someone else on the podcast and not me.
Yeah, come on, Nick. How could you ditch the Amazing Race Oz? I remember those days during the Australia versus New Zealand. Joining me is the future host of Survivor New York, maybe, I think. It's Jordan.
Yeah. Long Island's fine, but...
Long Island?
Yeah, New York, whatever.
Yeah.
Should I play my adult tonight, Noah?
That's not your...
Well, we'll get into that, because I would probably will have said yes, but maybe I'm more of an arsehole than Aubrey. We'll get into that. So yeah, it was an interesting episode, and we're going to format this episode a bit differently, rather than just a general recap. We'll see how it goes. It may completely fail. I was going to do this with Colin, but he didn't show up. But before we get into that, we'll just get the general thoughts. So what did you think of the episode? I thought it wasn't one of the better ones of the season, but it wasn't horrible. Like, it's kind of that typical mid-merge where not a whole lot is happening. It was a kind of semi-surprise of a boot. I was expecting Jason, but it wasn't a major surprise, but that was good. So yeah, Nick, general thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think it was one of the episodes. It's actually funny because the last time I was here was the big Medevac Caleb episode. So it's funny that I'm back for one of the slower episodes, and that was one of the crazy ones. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit disappointed as well because I didn't get as much of my Aubrey fix as I like to have each week. But you know,
you're an Aubrey night.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was a bit disappointed, but could have been a lot worse. You could have got voted out or something, which I would have not been in a very good.
We need a name for the Aubrey fans. What can they
we
like?
do.
The Auberries or something?
We need something.
The Aubreys? I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Send us a hashtag.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's kind of sums up this episode where it's like stuff happened, but did really much happen? Jordan, what did you think? General thoughts?
Yeah, it was kind of odd because the whole episode seemed to revolve around the story of, is Jason going to go home or is he not going to go home? And it just turned out to be Julia, who was, invisible for the first half of the season. And again, she was basically invisible in her own boot episode. And it was just, we thought it was going to be either Jason going home or Jason coming out on top of the episode. But no, he's still on the bottom. So it was kind of weird in that way. Otherwise, and of course we had Ty, who, is just caught in the middle, and he's either going to be the next person or he's on the bottom of the 5-person and alliance. So a bunch of different stuff, but it didn't really lead anywhere tonight or this episode.
Remember when John Cochran talked about a Julia who was vanilla? We'll get into that in a minute.
This Julia was a little better.
She was vanilla with a flake in it or something. Like
She was white chocolate.
I don't know if you have... She was white chocolate. Yeah, that's a good one. Alec, general thoughts?
I want to start out by saying I love that Mark the Chicken is getting more airtime than Joe. But yeah, it wasn't
I love Grouchy Joe.
Yeah. But it wasn't like, the past couple episodes have been really good ones, and it's like this one is a slow one. It wasn't your typical Magic 7 episode that we always seem to get. But it's probably the slowest episode since maybe since Liz is voted out. So the second slowest episode of the season. But yeah, it wasn't a bad episode. It just wasn't that great of an episode. And the story was about Jason, and then the vote doesn't even come down to whether it's Jason or someone else, and Jason comes out on top or anything like that. It's just will Michelle and Sydney flip? Well, no, because they're stupid. No, just kidding. But yeah, it wasn't a great episode, but it wasn't a bad one,
I'm going to say this with no shame. I am a Jason fan. I don't care what people think of me. I like Jason. I think he's a great character. But before we get into what I'm planning to do, I'm really postponing this. Let's talk about Julia, who was voted out. We'll do the in memoriam now, before I forget. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. She wasn't vanilla. Maybe it's Vanilla Michelle we should be talking about. We'll get into that. But I don't know. I just didn't find her as an engaging character as a lot of fans did. She was definitely playing the game, but her game was just very transparent in that, yeah, she was playing both sides, but Aubrey and Sydney and everyone knew she was playing both sides. So it wasn't like she was being super sneaky or anything like that. If she made it to the end, very doubtful she could have won. So, yeah, I don't dislike Julia, but I just don't have a lot that I'm like, oh, she's an amazing character or anything like that. What do you think, Nick?
Well, I'm obviously gutted because she was my pony in the Survivor Oz sweepstakes, so there'd be no money.
Finally, Nick doesn't win!
Yeah, so, I'm a little bit sad about that, but, I actually think, given her age, pretty amazing, really, at 19 years old, to have played the game she has. I think she's a little bit of a Jeff Probst student in terms of you've got to make big moves, that whole thing. She's grown up watching the show, and been a bit whitewashed into thinking that you have to make big moves all the time. So, she was a hell of a lot better TV than somebody like Natalie Tenorelli, for example, who was young as well.
I was going to bring up her. She's definitely better than Natalie Tenorelli.
Yeah, and I think not even in terms of game. Well, I guess gameplay, but she's more entertaining and you get more out of her. So I think and I think that's probably a season that Julia's not a more standout character, because I think on a normal season she probably would be, and this is just such a great cast, great season, that she does blend into the background a little bit more when she'd be probably, a top 2 or 3 character in another season. And so, definitely a huge amount of praise for her and her game, even though you maybe didn't see as much of it as you might have liked to.
What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, I think Julia wasn't a bad character. Like, I think in this episode, she was, like, the second best character besides Jason. Like, she was entertaining. I feel that the first half of the season, like, the editors didn't really give us anything to show that. And so, like Julia, I feel Julia was trying to play the game that, like, Aubrey and Sydney are, just because she's a little bit younger. Maybe she isn't able to be as sneaky about it. But yeah, it's like, she's, like, losing her at the Magic 7 is like losing Jeffra at the Magic 7 in Cagayan. Like, we're not losing a top-notch player, but we're, like, progressing the storyline in a way. So, like, she had the potential to be a great player, a great character. Maybe not a great player, but she had the potential to be a great character. She showed it post-merge, but, she was entertaining to watch. Maybe she'll come back sometime down the road and prove us that she's a great player, so.
I like Jeffra. And I'm not sure if we will see Julia. Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll see Julia again. I don't know. Maybe it's because
we never thought Natalie Tenorelli would actually be, like, a shot to even come back in the game, and she was one of the ones we could have voted for.
Yeah, that's true. It's anything's well, not anything, but a lot of things are possible. But just based on how many, like as Nick was saying, how many great characters there are on this season, I think she's probably going to be overshadowed by that. Jordan, Julia.
I think, I think it was her own fault that she got voted out, and I think it started way back in the final 9 when she went on that reward, and she flirted with the idea of going with the 3 guys alliance, and it was okay that she volunteered to go on their team for that challenge and then on the reward, but she could have easily said to the other people, the other 5 people, just wanted to let you know I'm totally not with the guys. I'm voting with you from here on out. And, I think she definitely wavered with those people. And then, of course, after Scott was voted out, she just hung out with Jason the whole time, this episode. And I think she put herself on the outs with the alliance. I think she could have been a very good player if she didn't side with Jason or Jason in this episode. I think she could have went a lot further, maybe to the final 4 or 3 even. So because she wasn't a threat, and if she, just hung back again, she said she was like Natalie Tenorelli, but she's a better version, and she has a better strategic mind, and I think she just put herself in trouble the entire way. I think it's her own fault that she got voted out. I think she should have gone a lot further.
Yeah, I wonder if she would ever have had a chance had she made the end.
Yeah,
I'm guessing so. Probably not.
Yeah, unless she's up against 2 goats or 1 goat.
Joe,
yeah. Joe, only Joe.
Right.
Yeah, all you need to do is insert name here. Could win if they were up against Joe. Which we'll get into Joe. But what I wanted to do this week that's a bit different than other episodes is I'm going to go through each of the names of the people left, because we're getting into the end game here. There's 6 people left. I'll just go in alphabetical order. And I want us to discuss how they will win, what are their best options to win going forward based off this episode in the past and looking at the future episodes, who can win even the people we don't think can win, Joe, I still want to talk about how they could win, like what situations could get Joe to the win. I want to build a case for each of these players, and we can also talk about why they won't win, of course. And in doing that, hopefully we also cover most things that happened this episode. Because there is, I think there's only 3 more episodes left, and then we're up to the finale where one of these 6 people, Aubrey, Joe, Michelle, Sydney, Jason or Ty, is going to be the winner. So I'll go to people, but this is also an open discussion, so if you've got something to add, jump in. But yeah, let's try and build a case for each of these players. Why are they going to win? Who do they need to be next to? What situation does need to happen to get to the end?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say, I just realized, like, this is like San Juan del Sur all over again, after Jeremy and Josh were voted out, and we're like, who's going to win the season now? Yeah. Because there were 9 people left, and no one was getting either a great edit or no one was playing that well. And, so without, I think this is like a redo of San Juan del Sur, just without the loved ones pairs.
Yeah, there's definitely no obvious front runner. There's definitely a few people that we're looking at and we're saying, yeah, they have a much better chance than someone like Joe. But looking at it, there is no obvious front runner, which is kind of interesting because last season a lot of people thought Jeremy, but there was like 5 front runners.
I said Jeremy,
or not 5. Yeah, but most people were saying it's either going to be Jeremy, Spencer, Wentworth. Tasha was even in the mix. Worlds apart, everyone was saying Joe, with maybe Carolyn might pull it through. I mean, not Joe, sorry, Mike. Maybe Carolyn will pull it through. Yeah. And then there's this one where... Yeah. Well, not everyone, Jordan.
All the girls wanted it. Yeah.
I wanted it to be Joe Del Campo. So I think it's appropriate that the first name on this list is Aubrey Bracco then, because we were talking about how there's not really a front runner, but I would say Aubrey probably is the front runner. And I think there's a very good chance that Aubrey will win. I don't think it's set in stone. I think there's a lot can happen that will prevent that. And if we look at the past and what she's happened, I've got a lot of things to say on Aubrey, but I want to go to Nick first because you said you are the big Aubrey fan. You're an Albright or a Auberry, whatever you want to call it. So is Aubrey going to win this game, Nick?
What about Aubraholic? That's quite good, eh?
Aubraholic, I like that. And you kind of include both first and last name. Aubra.
Yeah. Look, I
Aubraholic,
think,
I like it.
I mean, I think it all depends on the way you view how the show's been edited, and I'll cut right to the chase that I think it's either Aubrey or Michelle. I can't see anybody else as a potential winner at this point, and I think it depends on whether you see it as the story of Aubrey kind of starting out pretty rocky and turning into a strategic badass, or whether you kind of see it as Michelle's kind of growth story as something that didn't really know how the game was played and is learning how to play it and letting other people make mistakes and she's swooping and win at the end. I think if Aubrey makes it to the end, she wins and it doesn't matter who she's sitting next to. She's in that kind of Malcolm position where she's just got to get to the end, and if she makes it to the end, she sweeps the vote. With a couple of exceptions, in terms of losing a vote or two, to a couple of people, I think she wins. So her job is to make herself not look too threatening, and just, keep steady with the people she's there with and not worry about who she gets to the end with because she can beat any of them. And I think that kind of speaks really well to her game. I was so on board with her winning last week, and then watching this episode just really threw me for, a spin because suddenly I thought, they're kind of building up a story. And Michelle just reminds me so much of Amanda Kimmel, and just the thought of an Amanda-type character winning a season just grinds my gears to such a degree that if I wasn't a huge fan of Aubrey before, I now also don't want Michelle to win. So I'm really behind an Aubrey win, but I'm kind of scared it's not going to happen as well.
That episode 1 thing is interesting because I think that could be what you said, where she's overcoming the odds and she's learned, she wanted to quit, but she's come back and now she's grown and she's this big player who doesn't want to quit anymore. But I think that could also show how that she does have flaws and that she isn't going to win. Like, I think you could read that in both ways. Of Joe has talked about her neuroses before, and other people have talked about how she's really crazy, and she doesn't talk strategy. Like, if people approach her, often she doesn't talk to them. So I think you could read that first episode scene in multiple ways. I'm wondering.
You could also you can kind of look at that episode as the Kathy, Holly type story of somebody that starts out really rough, gets their feet underneath them, and becomes such a threat that they get voted out right before, or even to kind of like a Kelly Wentworth type thing, like they get so close and then they're the last clip before the final tribal council. So I'm aware that there's that potential for an edit for her as well.
Yeah, I could see Aubrey being a fourth placer, but I don't think she's in trouble anytime soon. I don't think anyone's targeting her because Jason wants to go after Ty, and the rest of the people want to go after Jason. So I think she's good for the moment. Jordan, build up a case for Aubrey. Is she going to be the winner?
I want to say she's going to be the winner because she's my pony. It is so tough to predict. Like you said, in episode 1, she was down and out, and she almost, I don't think she almost quit, but, she was not feeling well, but then she bounced back to perform in the immunity challenge. If I remember correctly, she was like one of the better players in that challenge. But then in episodes 2 through 4, we didn't hear anything from Aubrey. That first vote, the Liz vote, that was Debbie driving the vote. It wasn't Aubrey, and I think there was only like one time that she spoke in those 3 episodes, and that was at Tribal Council. But after that, she's really been the narrator strategy-wise. I just don't think she has the overall story arc as a winner. That being said, all of her moves, except the Peter vote out, have come post-merge, which is what a jury thinks about, is what's happened most recently in the game, and that's good for her. Again, we still have 3, maybe 4 votes to come up. And there's only going to be 2 or 3 people sitting at the end. Is she going to be one of those people? I think if she gets there, she's almost certainly going to win. Especially over Joe. And I'll just say right now, anyone can beat Joe. I guess you said it earlier too. But yeah, I think. I don't know if her story, and I go a lot by the edit, I don't know if her story arc's strong enough. I'm just going to put that out. But the way she's playing, I think it's going to be tough to see who she goes up against at the end, especially if it's a final 3. There might be more options, other than her to give the vote to. But it's up in the air for me. It's between like 3 or 4 people for me as to who's going to win, and Aubrey's definitely one of them. But I don't know if I can see her as a strong winner if she does win, according to the edit.
I think she has a pretty good path there. The only thing I question is her loyalty to Ty, and we'll get into it when we talk about Ty. But I think that could bite her. If there's going to be one thing. But
I don't think she has any loyalty to Ty.
I disagree, because I think
Ty has more loyalty to her than she does to Ty.
Well, maybe not loyalty, but her desire to keep Ty around, I question.
Maybe I worded that wrong. To keep Ty around.
Then why didn't Ty go this week?
Because they needed to get Julia out, or Jason.
Because then I think that might bite her in the back, and we'll talk about that when we get to Ty. But Alec, is Aubrey the winner?
This is going to make Jordan very happy, but in my book, yes. I don't see any scenario where if Aubrey doesn't make it to the end, she won't win. Now, saying that, is she like this? She hasn't. her like story arc has been like so like, oh, I'm on the top of the world, now I'm down at the bottom. Now I'm at the top of the world, now I'm down at the bottom. And it's like, it's not the greatest story arc. Like, you know, she was not part of any plan this week other than like the one to vote out Julia, obviously. Like, she wasn't one of the swing votes when she probably easily could have been. But I think, like you were talking about, Noah, her loyalty to Ty maybe stopped Jason and Julia from wanting to approach her more than anything. And it's like, if she makes it to the end with anyone, I would say she has a better chance to win. Will it be like, you know, a 6-1 vote? Like 6-1-1 or something like that? No, it'd probably be like a 4-3, especially if she's there with like Sydney and Michelle, which I think will probably be the final three. But like, I think she's the clear winner at this point if she makes it to the finals. But like Nick said, she just has to make it to the final. She could be that fourth place person that comes so close yet so far. Or if there's a final 2 instead of a final 3 this season, she could be the third place person. Who knows? And so it's like, she's good for maybe the next vote, but I think after that she might become the target. And so that might be a big problem for her to make it to the end. And because like Jason and Scott tried to vote her out the previous tribal because they saw how big of a threat she was. So maybe that'll be Jason's plan going forward. Yeah, he wanted to vote Ty out this time, but that's just, you know, he's an easy target with the idol and the advantage. But I feel she'll become a target possibly next episode, if not that one, then the one after. And so her making to the end is the big question. But if she makes it to the end, yeah, she's going to win, in my book.
I do wonder how loyal Sydney and Michelle are to Aubrey. That would be interesting going forward, because we'll talk about when we talk about them, but it's definitely in their best interest to take Aubrey out, I think. Next up, if we're going alphabetical order, it's Joseph Joe Del Campo. What would his fan base be? The Del Champions or something like that? How does that work?
Sitting next to Mark the Chicken, he'll win.
Yeah.
No, he'll lose to Mark the Chicken.
That's true. Mark the Chicken will get Ty's vote, get Scott's vote, get Jason's vote, even if they've already eaten him by then.
Yeah. Let's just rush through, because Joe's not winning, but in what situation could Joe win? The only one I can think of is maybe Joe sits next to Jason and it's a final 2. He might get Aubrey's vote, probably get Debbie's vote.
Maybe Neil.
Maybe Neil's. I'm not sure how close they were. So he could get 3 or 4 votes if that's the final 2. So to me, that's the only way Joe wins, if it's a final 2 with him and Jason. We won't spend too much on Joe, but Alec, Joe, how can he win? What's his path?
The only thing that I see Joe winning right now is a Peter popularity contest. For being Peter's most favorite person in the world. But yeah, like, even in a final 2 against Jason, I still think Jason will win. Hate to say it, like, because Jason's at least, like, done things in the game, even if he hasn't been the most popular. Because I feel like a Debbie would vote for Jason over Joe, because Jason's at least done things, because she's like a big game player. Like, she wants the people who played the best game to win. And so
Joe has nothing on his resume. Exactly.
Joe doesn't have anything on his resume. Jason has at least 1 or 2 things. And like that, like, especially since Jason's been on the outs, and like if he were to make it to the end, somehow, some way, then it would be like even more impressive to a jury. Whereas like Joe, like, he hasn't gotten any edit of anything. Like, half of his edit has been like him fighting with people, like him fighting with Liz, him fighting with Peter. Like, so it's like, even if he makes it to the end, he might be seen as the grumpy old man, and so nobody wants to vote him to the end. Even if he makes it with the grumpy middle-aged man. So, I don't see any scenario. The Jason one's probably the most logical of how he could win, but I don't think he'll even win in that case.
Jordan.
No chance.
That pretty sums it up.
Maybe a vote from Aubrey. Probably a vote from Aubrey, and maybe that's about it. That's all I have to say. Like, he's got no story. Even Jason's got a story that is better than his, so Joe has no chance.
Nick, do you like Grouchy Joe?
Yeah, I like Grouchy Joe. He's good fun. But yeah, I mean, there's no chance of him winning. I think there's theoreticals where he could win. I'm not convinced that Ty's getting any votes if he gets to the end with this jury. I'm not sure that she's going to give him any respect. So there is situations where I think Joe could win, but the edit just doesn't support it. There's no way you could even start theorising what's the point of even talking about a Joe versus Ty final two, because it's just not going to happen. You know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The only way Joe wins is if he's in a final two and the other person gets medevaced on day 39.
Yeah.
Medically evacuated before final travel.
Yeah.
Well, I still think Joe will be the other medevac, but we'll see.
The only logical queen at this point.
I think all the other characters are too much of like bigger characters that it will just be a boring him. Nick, well, you mentioned this as the other person. It's Michelle, which there's the Michelle movements. So I'll call her fan base the Michelle Movers. But there's the Michelle movement where people have been saying since early on, Michelle is the winner, Michelle is the winner, and I just haven't seen it. I will say this week, I definitely could see her getting a Natalie Anderson, where in the last few episodes her edit picks up dramatically. But I don't know, she just doesn't have a lot to build a case on. I'm not sure. She is the only character on this season that I dislike that's left. I'm really not a Michelle fan. I think the vanilla should be applied there. But regardless of my opinions, I can see her making the final three at this point. I don't know if anyone's going to be targeting Michelle. But once she gets there, what is her case? And can she beat Aubrey if she's sitting next to Aubrey? And she seems to want to go to the end with Aubrey. So I definitely see her. Edit-wise, her game is picking up in this end, and if that continues, maybe you could build a case for her. But for the rest of the game, I really haven't seen her, and I've just seen her as kind of floating in the background and being a bit of a nothing player who every now and then does something minor. But Nick, you seem pretty confident on Michelle's chance.
Yeah, I think it's just you get weird little confessionals from her that kind of don't make any sense unless there's a bigger story going on behind them, which is what worries me. And I think there's also that underlying...
I love that you say worries. You really don't want Michelle to win, do you?
Oh, well, I think it will be... and nothing against Michelle, but I just think it will just be an unsatisfying way for the season to end, which is what concerns me, and that the fact that Jeff and production have been so down on the season, and it's obviously been a really good season, so why are they down on it? And that makes me think that because the winner is unsatisfying, and Michelle kind of ticks those boxes. She just gets weird confessionals that, they don't need to be there. And, that kind of makes me think that they're there because they want to build a story up. Now, they could be doing a really good job of fooling us, and Aubrey's the winner, but they just want to make sure that we don't see that as too obvious. So let's get some Michelle footage in there to just kind of mix it up. And I think that's a really good possibility as well. And I think that's why I say I feel like she's getting a kind of like a Amanda Kimmel type edit, where I think you're getting enough that you can kind of make a case for her getting to the end, but you can also see why she doesn't win. And I think you're right. I mean, I don't know who she sits next to other than Joe, that people are going to respect her game more than the person she's sitting next to. I even think the likes, like Sydney or I think Jason actually has quite a good shot against Michelle, because, I think Neil would vote for Jason. I think Scott obviously would vote for Jason. I don't think Michelle's given anybody a reason to vote for her. But yeah, I'm just concerned because I see these little things in the edit which kind of just don't make any sense. So that worries me.
Do you think there's any way she doesn't make the final three? She's in a good position to make it. I'm not saying she'll win, but to make it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there doesn't seem to... anything's possible. And I think, there's a possibility that she doesn't make it. But if she's not there at the final four, I would be very surprised.
So what does she need to do to win? Who does she need to take out, and who does she need to go with?
Well, I mean, obviously, if she sits next to Joe, she's doing all right. I'll go back to my point that I actually don't think Ty has a lot of respect from that jury, and I think everybody still in the game thinks that he's a big jury threat. But I think if he actually got there, he's a bit of a lunch lady Denise. Everyone thinks they're going to be a big threat if they make it to the end, but the reality is that nobody really respects them. and they're not going to get a lot of votes. And I think a lot of the jury will see. I'm jumping ahead, but a lot of the jury will see Ty as somebody that has had no ideas of his own. He's had to be guided by everybody else. And, the likes of Scott and Jason are never going to vote for him anyway. So Michelle sitting next to Ty, I think that's an easy win for her. Sydney's such an unknown because there just isn't enough in the edit to really tell us if she's got a lot of respect from people or not. And I think Michelle could really be one of those people that gets votes like a Natalie White. People vote not really for her, but against the person she's sitting next to.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that she should have she should go with Ty, because I was thinking she was crazy that she didn't flip and vote out Ty this week. And obviously it probably boils down to Sydney didn't want to flip as well, not just Michelle. Ty is last in this list, but he's an interesting one because I don't really see a situation where he doesn't make the final four at this point. And we'll get into that more, but just based on what he has, he will really have to screw up if he's not in the final four. And next week is really their only chance to get him out. So that means only two people that have to be voted out, and Jason's one of them, but then who's going next? Because it's not Joe. Aubrey's not going to be voting out Joe. Aubrey seems pretty set on Sydney, so it's going to have to be either Michelle or Michelle. Like, that's what worries me is, like, I could easily see her in the final three, but if Ty goes to the final four because of his advantages, then I think Michelle may find herself on the bottom, unless they rally against Aubrey. But Alec, what do you think of Michelle's chances of winning? She seems to be a lot of people's number 2 front runner.
Michelle's chance to win is only if there's a bit of jury, in my mind. Because if she makes it to the end, say against an Aubrey and a Sydney, like, as I said, what I think is going to be the final 3, then she will probably only get Julia's vote. Because I feel like her and Julia, and maybe Nick's, just because they started dating in real life apparently. But
are they dating?
Yeah, according to Survivor Wiki, they are. But
ask Andrew.
We also know that Tasha Fox and Eddie Fox are not related from the Survivor Wiki.
Yes, true. But apparently they started dating in real life. But that was post game, obviously. But yeah, it's Michelle will if it's Michelle and Ty on the final 2, then yeah, she might win because Scott and Jason will be upset at Ty. Julia might be upset at Ty for flipping, depending on how these other guys get voted out. Maybe Aubrey will be upset at Ty or something, Joe could be upset at Ty, stuff like that. And so it's just that is an obvious path that I think she might take. Obviously her against Joe because, well, let's face it, Joe has 0% chance of winning the game, to quote Spencer. But her against Jason, I could... Yeah. It's Michelle makes it to the end with Jason and Joe. I think Michelle would probably win. But that's also a long shot. That might be a 5-3 vote. But even then, it's I still think Jason probably has a better chance to win.
Plus, you have to also think, how does she get to the end with Jason?
Yeah. And it's Michelle has, so far in this season, has only been prominent for 2 episodes, really. This past episode, and then the episode that Peter got voted out in, because she was she ruined the challenge, and that's what her whole episode was. I ruined the challenge, the reward challenge, but I'm gonna keep playing the game. And it's
and then she almost drowned herself.
Yeah, and it's
But that's a big thing that the Michelle mover said is, Michelle's the winner because she hasn't been shown in a negative light, which is just false.
That's the thing. It's
but that is a big argument on the Michelle movers, why they
she hasn't been shown in the negative light. Or she hasn't been shown.
She hasn't been shown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's the big thing. It's Jason has been shown in the negative light, but he's been shown a lot. And Ty has been shown in the negative light, but he's been shown a lot. Sydney hasn't been shown as much, and she's never been shown in the negative light. I don't think Sydney's ever had a bad thing in any episode, except maybe the one where Debbie goes home because she was a target. But she didn't have any negative things about her. at all. It's like she's never.
Which I don't think that is the criteria for winners anyway, because I think like 2/3 of all Survivor winners have been showed in a negative light at least one point in their season. So I don't know why that's an argument for anyone.
You know?
Yeah.
Champion even was at once, you know?
Yeah, so many people were. Jordan, what do you think of Michelle's chance? How will she do it? Can she do
it? Nick, are you referring to Amanda in China or Micronesia?
Well, I think both, actually. I think, she kind of gets that. You get strung along thinking she's going to be the winner, especially in China, but you get strung along thinking she's going to win, and then she doesn't.
Yeah. Because I think Amanda had a better chance in Micronesia than China. But anyway, Michelle, God, it's tough to say. She might make the finals again. If she's with Aubrey, she loses. If she's with, if she's with Aubrey, she loses. She might have it, and probably Sydney beats her too. If she's in there with Jason, again, if people are mad, I agree with Alec. If people are mad if the jury is mad at like Jason, or if she's up there with Joe, I think she has a shot. Actually, Ty also, I think. Ty is I don't think as much of a jury threat as the players are making him out to be. Like, he's betrayed just about everybody, and he's flip-flopped so many times. I'm talking about Ty, but we should be on Michelle. Anyway, Michelle, she's had all these confessionals, but they've been, a burger was great, or the fried chicken was great, or I ruined the challenge, but it was just a reward challenge, and she was doing nothing.
Carter Williams,
right? And she was doing nothing for the first, in the first 4 episodes where Beauty didn't have to go to Tribal. Like, we didn't hear from her except maybe like once or twice. And there was nothing going on, but, she hasn't had anything insightful to say until, 1 or 2, I guess. Well, she was featured prominently in this particular episode, but yes, she's been getting confessionals, but what's her story? She doesn't have a story yet. I think she's going to play an important role coming up the next few episodes, but I just can't see why she would win, other than, Jason is mean and Joe did nothing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just one more thing about Michelle.
Yeah.
So, I keep my own confessional count on here. So the only people that I've had less confessionals that are left in the game than Michelle are Sydney, who basically have had about the same amount, and they both have very similar stories of never being shown in the negative light. And Joe, who we've already established has 0% chance of winning the game. It's she's not super impactful like Ty and Aubrey have been on the game so far. It's these Michelle movers, she hasn't been shown in the negative light, but she also hasn't been shown very much at all. It's just does she have a chance to win the game? Yes. Everybody but Joe has a chance to win. Mark the Chicken has a chance to win the game at this point, because anyone can. But it's just she hasn't given us anything to show that she wins the game. So maybe she will over the next couple episodes, and then I'll have to cut my toe off because I was wrong about it. But she might end up getting second place, but I don't think she'll win unless she's up there with 2 people that the jury hates. So.
I'm definitely not ruling her out, but I'm just not seeing it as much as a lot of people are, and I just don't think the arguments are holding up very well. Apart from this episode where her edit really did seem to spike, and there has been winners who haven't received a whole lot of confessionals.
Natalie White.
But a lot of people, when they want to argue this point, they use Natalie White and they use Sophie.
Sophie was shown in the negative light a ton. Just saying.
Yeah, but I just don't think the Sophie and the Natalie White arguments hold up, because they Natalie was on a season with the person who got the most confessionals in any season ever, Russell. So of course she's not going to be shown. No one was shown.
And Sophie was with Coach and Ozzy.
Yeah, and she was with Coach and Ozzy.
And she
So
was actually doing a lot of stuff, Sophie was.
Uh-huh.
I think.
Yeah.
She was in a strong alliance, and Michelle's been, like, nowhere. Oh.
So I don't think that there are definitely winners who have received lesser confessionals than a Tony or something like that. But I don't think Sophie and Natalie White is a good case study for that.
Exactly.
So I'm not ruling Michelle out at all. I think, Nick, you made a few good cases for Michelle, but yeah, if she does win, both on a personal standpoint and as a winner, portraying a winner, I think it will be kind of disappointing. But the fact that we talked about her so much probably is saying something. But we should move on. We've still got 3 more people. Next, we're talking about Sydney Gillen. I don't know what her fan base is called. No, I can't think of anything. Gillionaires. There we go, the Gillionaires. I think she has a chance, but I think all of us have mentioned the fact that she hasn't really... Her character is always present, but we're not learning a ton about her. We did early on, pre-merge, we learnt that she's a bodybuilder, but she's also smart and all this stuff, and she's playing a sneaky game. But I feel like she's really been a background character who's still prominent. She's like a co-star, but she's not a main star. And I don't think she's made too many enemies, and I think she does have some stuff on her resume. She flipped on Scott and Jason. She's made the moves to get her to the end. And I think she has a good social game, but I don't know. I think it was Nick, maybe it was someone else who mentioned that we don't really know the jury's stance on Sydney. And often with a winner, we will have at least an idea. Like in Worlds Apart, we knew who would vote for who roughly, and or maybe that wasn't the best example, but Sydney, we really don't like. We've guessed that maybe Scott and Jason wouldn't vote for her, but I assume everyone else has no problem with Sydney. So I think she's definitely a front runner, but maybe more in the middle of the pack. But you weren't too high on Sydney, Nick.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like Sydney as a player. I think she's played a really, really good game. I'm losing faith that she's somebody that could potentially win, though. I'm not sure she's just getting the screen time that would be needed for somebody that's going to be the winner of the season. She feels like a losing finalist to me. Or potentially what I could see is her going this week. I could see it coming down to, her trying to tell Aubrey, well, you need to lose Joe because he's too much power, blah, blah, blah. He's an extra vote for you. And so Aubrey turns the tables and gets rid of Sydney. I can see that happening. I'm not seeing a winner vibe out of her, but that's not to say I don't think she's a good player. I think she's played well.
Who does she need to sit next to then to win?
Well, Joe, which is not going to happen.
Joe, and I think Joe and Michelle, she has a decent chance.
I think. I think if that's the case, I think Michelle wins. I think Sydney's probably annoyed a few people, like the Scott and Jason, and I get the impression from Sydney that she hasn't always kept the best of relationships open with people. And where's somebody like Neil going to vote? I'm not seeing that she's really whatever it is against Michelle. I think she could potentially lose to Michelle.
Yeah. Jordan, Sydney, is she a runner-up, a winner, or is she going to go next week?
Well, I don't think she's going to go... Well, she could go next week, but I don't think she's the winner. I think she could be seen as more of a physical threat coming down the stretch. Like, I could see her being like a day 37 vote out, where they don't want her around for the final immunity challenge. As a physical threat. If she gets to the end, it's going to depend on who she's sitting next to. But I think people are going to respect Sydney's moves over someone like Ty or Michelle. I don't think she would have a chance against Aubrey. But I just I don't know if I can see her getting to the end. And again, she doesn't have that strong of a story. We just see that she's making a couple of big moves and she's competing well in the challenges. I just don't see her winning.
Alec, what do you think?
I think the storyline with Sydney, I believe her story's been built around other people. If that makes sense. So if you see in like the immunity challenges, Sydney's always like one of the like finalists, and then somebody beats her out. And I feel that's kind of how the game will go for her. Does she have a chance to win? Yeah, she has about as much of a chance to win as Michelle does, in my eyes at least. It's like, but like with that immunity challenge that even Nick's like, oh yeah, Sydney's got this, and then Ty beats her out, and it's like then another challenge when like they're like, oh, Sydney's gonna do well at this one, and then somebody else beats her out, and it's like feel she'll be like a losing finalist or like the final 4 vote out, final 5 vote out, like that type of thing. I feel if Sydney really was gonna be the winner, she would have had a stronger edit in those first few episodes when Braun was going to tribal the whole time. Said we got a lot of Jason and a lot of Scott and like a little bit of her. Like she was prominent, but like she wasn't like a main like strategist behind it. Like the episode where Jenny gets voted out, she has like one confessional. It's like, well, like she was one of the swing votes, so it's like she could have had a lot more. And so like she has potential to win, but I feel if she really was 100% of the winner, then she would have gotten a stronger edit in the early days when her tribe was losing and losing and losing. And so I feel she'll come up short, whether it's a losing finalist or voted out in the last day or two. That's, I think, the theory. She has a chance to win. Against like a Joe and a Ty, they'll easily win. Even against a Michelle and a Ty or something like that, she has a chance to win as well. Against Aubrey, she'll lose. Against Jason, I believe she'll also possibly lose in my eyes as well.
I definitely agree about her pre-merge, but I also think if she was the winner, you could look at it like a Natalie Anderson thing.
That's true.
Where her pre-merge, really, I think a lot of people forget just how much she wasn't in it. And a lot of it has to do with her tribe. Hunapu, they won every challenge except for one, so she only had to go to one tribal council. But really, we only saw her in little doses, like when her sister got voted out, and when she fought with John Rocker, and when she volunteered to go to Exile Island with Baylor, I think it was. But that was pretty much it from Natalie, and then she kind of bursted out. And then a lot of people forget she was completely nothing in the beginning of the merge, like she was not even there. Yeah, and then after Jeremy, her edit really boosted, and each episode it got bigger and bigger.
I think it was.
So I guess it
was a lot after West got voted out, when she really took off.
Yeah,
she, like,
it kind of
like I want to get rid of John,
with Jeremy,
and then she saves John, and then it's like this is why,
Yeah, and that was like episode 10 or something.
Yeah,
and this was episode 11. So I think if they're going off that kind of winner's edit, I think you could make a case for her pre-merge there. But like her edit would really have to pick up in these last 3 episodes for her to be a really strong candidate.
Yeah.
But I hope if she does make the end and she's a losing finalist, she gets a few votes, because I do think she's played a good game, and hopefully she gets respect for that.
Yeah, she'll get a few votes if she gets there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Next up is Kyle Jason, who it's going to be tough for him to get to the end. I think of everyone here, he's the one who's going to have the hardest path to the end. But I know a lot of people are dismissing him, and this isn't just because I'm a fan. I think if he gets to the end, he could win the game. I don't think it's completely that he's a massive goat. He's definitely not going to get all the votes, but I could see him getting Scott. I could see him getting Nick's vote. Neil, potentially, who knows what... Neil is that kind of tricky one where we never know what the first jury member is really going to do. Yeah, so I don't think he would be... But I could see him getting at least 4 votes at the end, which would be enough to win, potentially. But I don't see him getting there at all. He would have to do a Fabio or a Mike at this point and win, which is possible. He's pretty good at challenges. But just, yeah, even if this week he doesn't go, they decide they're going to have to get Ty out, I still think he's 5th boot, and then if he somehow wins immunity there, he's the 4th boot. And if it's a final 2, he's absolutely screwed. So if Jason was sitting next to Joe, we always say Joe, but if he was sitting next to Joe and maybe Michelle probably wins there, but him and Ty and Joe, he could have a chance. Him and Sydney and Joe, he could have a chance. I don't think he's ever going to be a surefire win, even if we do see him in the finals, but I wouldn't rule him out. But with Ty and his advantage plus Idol, I don't see any way that Jason makes the final 3. What do you think, Jordan?
I actually agree with you in that he does have a decent chance to win if he gets to the end. I kind of look at him. It's strange that you mentioned Eddie Fox randomly, and I think I kind of see him as Eddie in Caramoan. Like Jason is the last surviving member of his alliance, unless you count Ty, but I don't count Ty anymore because he betrayed them. But if the other 5 go ahead and target each other, and Jason is on day 38 with one, a chance to win immunity to get to the end, he has a very good chance to get there. And I actually think he'll beat a lot of people. If it's a final 2 against, Michelle, I think he wins. I don't think he'll beat Sydney or Aubrey. But I think if he gets to day 38, I think he's got a really good chance somehow if he gets there. And I can see it happening if the other 5, turn on each other, and they just say about Jason, oh, we can get him later. We can get him at final 5 if we need to. And if he I'll be comparing him to Danny from Guatemala, who I think he's probably in the same spot. That's a better comparison, where Danny was the last surviving member of her alliance, and they just said, "Oh, we'll worry about Danny later," and all of a sudden, she's in the final 3 and she wins immunity. But I think Jason really does have a chance in the end if he can get there.
I think as well, he not just the jury votes, but he also has a story regarding he's a struggling father.
Yeah, I forgot.
And then B, he's also got a resume. He's made moves. He's played the game, and he's been very open about it.
I don't think. Yeah. Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was when it was he and Scott being really arrogant about their position. It was mainly Scott, and Jason was just mainly Scott who was bragging about their position in the game, and Jason only kind of spoke up at Tribal, but in the edit, there were no confessionals saying, or maybe one, but it was more focused on Scott, who I guess was the eventual boot. But this episode, Jason was shown in more of a positive light. And like you said, he does have the story of his daughter having autism. And I think if he gets to the end, he'll have a very compelling case as to, why he deserves the $1 million. I'll just leave it at that.
Alec.
But I 100% agree that Jason, I think Jason outside of Aubrey, I think Jason and Aubrey kind of have similar stories. If they can make it to the end, unless they're against each other, then I think Aubrey will win. I think Jason has a chance to win against anyone besides Aubrey if he makes it to the end, like even against Sydney and Michelle. Because there's been multiple moments of like bullying Alicia and stuff like that. Like there's been moments where it's like there's the negative moments that just Jason's guilty by association. Is he 100% part of it? No. Scott always came out in the more negative light, kind of like what Jordan was talking about. It's like, and he has a story, and it's like this episode, even though he still fell on the bottom of everything that went on, he still was seen in a positive light. And so, will he make it to the end? I 100% don't think so. But if he were to make it to the end, I think he would easily get respect votes from some people. Like, obviously he'll get Scott, and I'm pretty sure he'll get Nick's. He probably could get Debbie's, maybe even Julia's. It's like, there's 4 votes right there, and you only need 5 in an 8-person jury to win. It's like, so if he were to make it to the end, I think against anyone besides Aubrey, he has a really good shot of winning. But he has to make the end, and that's the thing. Is he like a Fabio that can go on an immunity run? Yeah, but I don't think he will. He's won 1 immunity so far, and he hasn't been close in a bunch of others. So I think he has probably the second best chance to win. Will he? No.
What do you think about Jason's chance, Nick?
Well, I'm going to throw one at you. I think Jason is reminding me a lot of Chris from Vanuatu. And the reason I say that is that I think that he kind of has that, that kind of charm to him, even though he's a bit of a scoundrel, which, a lot of people will like. And let's face it, if he's going to get to the end, the way he's going to do it is by winning immunities. And you only have to look at 2 seasons ago to see that a guy that a lot of people didn't like in the game, as soon as they go on a huge immunity run, people respect that. Even if they haven't made any big kind of strategic moves, they respect somebody that can win their way to the end. So if he did win his way to the end, I think he's got a really good shot against almost anybody. And, I think if he sits next to Joe or Ty, or even Michelle, I think he could win. Again, I'm just not sure we sit and I think the thing is, if the eventual winner of this season was Jason, then, Jeff Probst would be blowing his load all over the place. And we're not seeing that. So, for me, I can't assume that a season that ends with Jason winning would be considered a bad one by Jeff. So that's kind of the thing that tips me off to thinking that he doesn't win.
I apologise if you can hear some Cambodian light rain in the background. But maybe the one thing that didn't make Jeff so excited is he did tweet out after the air quote bullying episode, and he said, "I hope you can use this as a thing to teach your children of what not to do," or something like that. So maybe Jeff's really anti-bullying or something.
Yeah,
and maybe that's why I didn't like it.
Because we're all big Jason's fans.
Yeah. But I think you were alluding to Mike before, and you could almost see the same thing, because Mike had the thing where he took the idol clue, or the idol clue, and he also had the firewood fiasco and stuff like that, where we all knew Mike was winning, but at the same time you're like, geez, he really hasn't done wonders on the jury, but they respected him at the end though. And Jason is a great talker as well, so I think he would give a good speech at the end. So on to the final person. We started with Aubrey, who was kind of a big talking point, definitely ending with a big talking point. Tai Trang, Trang Gang? I think that could be a good one for his fan base.
He has the biggest fan base.
Thai guys, Thai guys or Trang Gang. I think they both work. We'll go with Trang Gang because Thai guys were excluding the girls there. So, Nick, you were pretty anti-Thai being a winner. I think most people here were. I don't want to speak for anyone, but I don't know. I think Thai could win. He's flipped on everyone, and he's played a pretty god-awful game. I have not liked Thai's game in terms of, I think he's been a fun character for the season, but I don't think he's played a strong game by any stretch of the imagination. Almost a Keith Nail type one, but he's maybe a bit better strategically than Keith Nail. But I think Ty has the social game. I think if he made his way to the end and he gave his charm, he's a charmer, and if he gave his speech at the end And yes, I turned on the people who put the fire out because I didn't want to associate with myself with them because they were the bad guys. And I was on the outs of my tribe originally, but I fought back. I made the connections that I needed to make. I flipped and it helped me get further. I won the advantage and I had the idol, and I was the only one to play an idol in the entire game. And I used my advantage correctly and it helped me get to the final 3. I took out the people who were threats to me in the final 3. And he's likable. I could see maybe even a Scott. Scott's probably going to be bitter, but I don't know. I could see people. Neil wasn't really on a tribe with Ty, but I could see him. Maybe Debbie was going to chuck a Ty vote. Like Aubrey might vote for him if she's not there. Michelle and Julia, perhaps they were there at the beginning with him. I think there's a lot that could point to a tie. If he wins, he's one of the worst winners in the show, I think. But I'm not as down on him potentially winning. If I had to bet, I'm going to say no, Ty is not the winner. But I also not going to put on record 100% that he won't win. I think Joe is the only one I will put on record 100% won't win. So if he was with, I don't know, Joe and maybe Michelle or Jason at the end, even Sydney, I think, like Jason, it wouldn't be a blowout. It wouldn't be an 8-1 or 7-1-1 or whatever, however many jury members there will be. But I do think he could get at least 4 votes at the end and could charm his way to $1 million. But it sounds like I may be alone in this thought. So, Nick, Ty?
Yeah, nah, no way. I mean, for me, the big thing is that, you know, back in the day, somebody who could charm people and had a social game, they stood a chance in the jury. I think that's no longer the case. People want to see that you've got a resume, that you've done things and you've made moves and you've made good moves. And I think the biggest problem with Ty, and I mean, I really like him. He's been an awesome character for the show. Don't get me wrong. I think he's been really fun. But I think the reality is that people will look at him and say, you didn't do anything. And everything that you did do in terms of should I play an idol, you were guided by other people, so you were used by other people to get here. You haven't done anything yourself. Yeah, I mean, we can play the game of, he might beat Joe in the end, but what's the point? Because that's not going to happen. So I just can't see a scenario where, because the other thing I always think about is that, you know, people kind of forget that the jury go in there and they want to be comfortable that the person they vote for, they're saying they're happy that that person ultimately beat them and won their season, and they can sleep at night knowing that they chose the person that played the game better than them. And I just can't imagine anybody picking Ty as that person. It just, you know, it just doesn't really jive with how I think juries think. So I just can't see it happening. I mean, it would be, I'm tempted to say it's even less likely than Joe, because I think Joe at least would have a little bit of respect for the fact that he's that old and, you know, has hung in there for as long as he has. And I think Joe has no chance. So, you know, it's between Joe and Ty for me as to who has the least chance, and it's like 0 versus -1, you know?
Would you not argue the same thing happened with Keith Nail being so close to a win, though?
I think different jury, though. I think that San Juan del Sur jury was really different in that there were a lot of dummies and a lot of people who were, well, you know, but they didn't recognise strategy as being as big of an issue. And I think, again, if you get to a final 3 that's got Keith, Missy and Natalie, I still think Natalie probably wins. You know, I think that, you know, that jury sits there and I can't imagine that they give Keith the win. I mean, we'll never know for sure. You know, I think if Natalie's not there, then it's a completely different story, and everyone just goes, oh, who cares? You know, they all suck. So I'm also going to vote for Keith. And I mean, the same is true, I guess, for Fabio, is that people will say, how could they give him the money? But then, you know, the other options on display were unpalatable enough that the jury decided that Fabio was the best of a bad lot, really.
Hey, come on, Nick. The case for Chase.
Yes,
That
well,
was
I
a
mean,
controversial article.
I'm a strong believer of that one, but, you know, the Nicaragua jury would think otherwise.
I'm hoping you were the author of that one. I think you were. I could have just embarrassed myself there. Yeah. To me, and this is not even on his win, but I don't see how Ty doesn't make the final four unless he really screws, because he has the double the vote, that if he uses it next tribal, there's 6 people in the game. If he uses his vote, and assuming no one else is an idol, I think idols are out of the equation at this point, then they need 4 out of the 5 other people to vote for him. That means everyone bar one person has to vote for Ty. And I don't know if I see that happening, and a lot of people don't seem too worried about the fact that he has the advantage in the idol. So he uses the advantage next week, and that takes him to Final 5. Then at Final 5 he uses the idol, he's at Final 4. And that's all assuming he doesn't even win an immunity. If he wins immunity next week, it's even more surefire. So I think he'll have to really screw up to not make the Final 4 at this point. Not saying he'll win.
Yeah, and I could see him being somebody that loses in the finals, that, you know, if it's the final 3, I could easily see him being the one that gets forgotten because, you know, he doesn't have it's Aubrey, Michelle and him, and everyone is just focused on the other 2 and he just kind of gets forgotten. Or I could see him being, you know, that thing of people think he's going to be a big jury threat when he actually isn't, and he goes out at 4th. You know, I can see both scenarios playing out.
Yeah. Alec, it sounds like I'm kind of alone in thinking Ty can win here.
Ty has a slim chance. Like, I think he has more of a chance than Joe, but less of a chance than anyone else left in the game. I think of Ty's edit kind of like Sugar's in Gabon. Like, she gets a positive light edit, but like, you know, she's going to be a goat at the end. And it's like, that's kind of how Ty is. It's like, he's pissed off enough people on the jury. Like, Scott's never going to vote for him. Debbie, maybe. Nick, I don't think will vote for him. It's like Neil, as we've already mentioned, is up in the air. Julia, I don't think will vote for him. It's like, depending on how he plays the rest of the game, he might get like 1 or 2 votes. But I don't think he has a chance to win the game if he's up there with the right person and if he's made the right moves going to the end. As far as like making it to the end, like you said, he does have the advantage and he has the immunity idol. It's like, number one, that double vote advantage seems to have become a curse now. Because both Dan and Steven got voted out when they used it. But as far as that, I think, in my opinion, I think Ty has to use it this next episode. But I don't think he will use it at all, based on how little it's been talked about. And so I think he'll either get voted out with that advantage and possibly the idol, because ever since the super idol left, well, there's been no talks of any other idols, basically, except Ty whispering to Aubrey, oh, should I use it? Like, it wasn't, they were going to vote for Ty to try to flush out the idol and vote him out with the idol. It's like, it hasn't been as prominent like it was with the super idol when, like, everybody was talking about it. And he's played such a sloppy game that, like Nick was saying, it's like, it's a different jury. Like, I feel this jury is going to be a bitter jury, which is another plug towards the Michelle movers of why they think she's going to win. But it's like, and Ty is the one who's pissed off the most people on the jury. Has he made moves? Yeah, he's probably made more moves than anyone else in the game. But have they been the right moves? And I feel that's his big thing. I feel him voting out Scott was a wrong move for him in the game. And so, like, ever since then, it's just been, like, bad decision after bad decision so far. It's like, and so that's my theory of Ty. Does he have a chance to win? Yes. Will he win? I highly doubt it. He might be a Yao-Man that, like, if you go by the train gain, he probably has the most fans out of anyone on the entire season. Like, I'm talking to somebody in one of my college classes. She's like, oh, I love Ty. I'm like, too bad Ty doesn't have a chance to win the game. And she's like, I think he has a great chance to win the game. Hence the casual fan right there. Because the jury has now turned over into the, like, ever since Redemption Island, they've become a lot more of the vote for the best player who's played the best game, both socially and like strategically. And Ty has probably played one of the better games socially, but strategically he's kind of messed up here and there. And so he has a chance to win, but I don't think he will.
What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, no, you said like the argument he would have if he got to the end. Question is, can he articulate that argument? And
yeah, I probably did a better final jury speech for Ty than Ty would himself.
Yeah, but yeah, and no, I don't think Ty can win. A Ty and Joe final two, like how unlikely would that be? Like the two oldest people in the season in
that
the final two.
That would be a great final two, though. I would love that. Just for the lols.
Yeah. I'm just going to put it out there and say that Joe is a better strategic player than Ty is. I'm not kidding. Like, Joe's strategy, yeah. And Ty
Joe
was
was
just
told to sit on a rock
all
and
over
never
the place.
move the whole time while he's gone.
Yeah.
Well, my theory that I thought of this week is that Joe actually doesn't have a hearing aid and he didn't leave it at home and he's just tricking people and he's really listening like an in-person spy shack where a spy shack inside and he really can hear perfectly. And he's the mastermind of this season. Yeah. So, probably not.
Yeah. So, like, Ty has screwed up left and right. Like, he was on the outs day 2 on the Beauty Tribe. He was looking for the idol and he got caught, and then he continued to look for the idol. He just blurted out, "Oh, there's a super idol in Tribal Council," in what was it? In Final 10 or whatever, and then he flipped, and then he went with the bronze, and then he immediately said to he didn't give the idol to Scott. I mean, obviously that was the right move because he would have been voted out if he had given in the tiebreaker if he had given the idol to Scott. But flipping on them in the first place, I don't think was the right move. I said, I'm just going to make a bold prediction. I think he's going to go home with the idol in his pocket next week. He may use his advantage. I think in anyone else's hands, his idol and his advantage is in better hands. I think he's probably the least likely player to use the advantage well. I don't see him making it past 5. I'm just going to say that. Either he goes home this week with the idol in his pocket, or he uses the idol and gets voted out at 5. And again, I just don't think he can win over a jury, especially if if he's with anybody except Joe. I think he loses.
But if he wins this immunity, though, he is guaranteed Final Four. So, it will be interesting to see if he wins this week, because we'll know he will be in the finale then.
Yeah.
All right. I want to do one more quick, no real explanation for it, just list the names for me. I want the power rankings of 6, from 6 to 1, 6 being the least chance of winning, 1 being the most chance. So this isn't like the other power rankings where you put someone 3rd because they can maybe make the end or anything like that, or you put someone 4th because they're going to win immunity next week. This is purely 6. It's like a scale. 6, no chance of winning. 1, the best chance of winning. So which fans are going to be right out of the Opraholics, the Dell Champions, the Michelle Movers, the Gillionaires, the Train Gang, and the Kyle Jason fans. I don't know what Jason's would be.
The real
Jason. I have no idea.
Jason Bacon. I don't know.
The Kyle kids. We'll go with that. So, just list it off from 6 to 1. What have you got, Nick?
6 would be Joe. No, sorry, 6 would be Ty. 5 would be Joe. 4 would... Oh, this is hard. 4 would be Sydney. 3 is Jason, 2 Michelle, and 1 is Aubrey.
What about you, Jordan?
First of all, I just want to say I predicted Ty 2 weeks ago would win. I'm an idiot. I should never have predicted Ty.
I predicted last week, so, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
To make
Maybe
you feel better, I
do.
predicted Missy to win San Juan del Sur right up until the end. So,
yeah. Well, okay. So, again, final 2, Ty and Joe. I mean, that is just not going to happen. But somehow, if it does, I think Ty wins. So Joe is number 6, Ty is number 5, and the final 4 is like so close. It's just like 25%, 20%, 15%, 15%, something like that. I think Michelle is number 4. I think I'm going to say Michelle 4, Jason 3, and it's between, I think Sydney's 2. I think it's very close between Sydney and Jason, and that leaves Aubrey as number 1. It's tough. I think Aubrey wins in a close vote if she gets to the end, but it's really close. So
Alec,
Aubrey, Sydney, Jason, Michelle, and then tied for last is Joe and Ty.
Alec?
Mine's very similar to that. 6 Joe, 5 Ty, 4 Michelle, 3 Sydney, 2 Aubrey, 1 Jason. I think Jason getting to the end is more likely than Aubrey getting to the end, and so he has a better chance of winning in my eyes. Because I think Jason in the end against anyone besides Aubrey would win.
Well, mine's a bit different to that then.
Yeah, everybody's going to have Aubrey number 1, but I wanted to be different.
Well, I'm going to be different I'm going to say 6 Joe, that's not different. 5 Jason. I don't see how he's going to get to the end.
I thought you were a Jason fan.
Oh, yeah, but this has nothing to do with who I want to win.
That's true.
I would have Sydney first if I wanted it. I think Jason's a great character, but I don't think he's that Mike in that he's that really strong. He's kind of strong, but not really to win all of the challenges.
Mine's just if Jason makes it to the end, he's going to win. Just he won't.
Even then, I think it's a bit iffy if he did make the end. So I'm saying 6 Joe, 5 Jason, 4 Ty, 3 Michelle, 2 Sydney, 1 Aubrey. And we should jump straight into the final questions. And do I need to ask anyone's winner pick then, seeing as we just did it? I said Aubrey. Nick, you said Aubrey. Jordan, I think you said Aubrey. Who did you said? Jason, didn't you? Alec was Jason.
If I were to pick a winner pick, I would actually probably say Sydney's my winner pick. But if they make it to the end, I think Jason has the best chance of winning. But Sydney's my winner pick.
So who is next to go, Nick? Who is next to go, Nick? Who is next to go, Nick?
Hello, I'm here again. Sorry. That's really hard. I think it's probably going to be. I'm going to say Ty.
Everyone in the game would pretty much have to vote for him, I think, for him to go out. And I don't know, I feel like Aubrey and that would prefer Jason out, but yeah, maybe he gets voted out with his advantage. Alec, who's out now?
My prediction next episode is Jason somehow going to turn the tides against Ty, but Ty's going to play his idol, and then Joe's going to go. I don't know why.
Joe's going to be voted out next.
I don't know why Ty would vote for Joe, but that's just what I think is going to happen, because either he's going to get medically evacuated this next episode, or he's going to get voted out.
Jordan.
It's just time to go.
Yeah, I'm going to say Ty. I think Ty's going to go either this episode or next episode, and I think he's the story storyline, like he said in the confessional, I'm not getting voted out with an idol in my pocket. And, whenever they show someone saying that, it usually means that the opposite's going to happen. So I think Ty's going home.
I'm going to say such a boring and predictable answer, but I'll say Jason. I think his luck may run out.
No!
I hope that's not true. I don't think I want Jason to be the winner, but I would like him to make the finale. So who is the dark horse to win the game, Jordan?
I'm going to say Jason. I think if he gets to the end without Aubrey, I think he probably wins. But, if he'll have trouble getting there.
Alec?
This is going to sound boring, but Michelle, I think, is the dark horse to win. Because if they're up there with a bit of jury, like Sydney, if it's a Sydney and Michelle final two, well, enough people might be upset about Sydney with stuff, so Michelle would win. But yeah, she's the dark horse in my eyes.
Nick?
Oh, Joe, definitely Joe.
Joe's the dark horse.
There was a joke. There was a joke. But can you imagine?
Yeah, he's the pitch black
Joe
horse.
is the winner of the season. Can you imagine there would be riots outside CBS? Joe will win.
I would love that. So who's your other answer?
I guess my serious answer would probably be Jason. I can still see it possibly happening, but it's seeming pretty unlikely.
I'm going to say Sydney. It's not a real obvious one, but if she won, would anyone be super surprised? I don't think they would be. So I'll say Sydney. Who this week played the most like you would play the game? Just thinking about this one past week, Nick. So we didn't really talk about the episode too much, but here's your chance.
Probably Ty, because I'd do something stupid.
Good answer, Alec.
I would say Jason this past week. Like, just if you're in a spot like Jason would be, that's the only option you can do is turn it against the guy with the most like power in his pocket, and so that's the obvious thing to do. I would say Julia, but I think Jason did a lot more with that. So I would say Jason.
Jordan.
I'm really boring, so I would say Joe. Or if I was or if I was down there, I would say Julie.
Yeah, I would say Joe because I would sit out of a challenge after it just started. That would definitely beat me.
That was great.
Or Philip Shepard just not even
like
compete.
400 feet.
Yeah, I did love that. He's like, Joe, are you giving up? Yeah, I'm done, Jeff.
Too hard.
Why not just take a random key and try it?
Well, yeah, at least scout.
That might be a red flag. Just saying.
Yeah.
That might be a red flag that he's back. So.
Yeah, I think it's a red flag that he's just really old. But yeah, well, let's quickly go through this last question of the episode. Who's going to be the medivac if there is going to be another one, Nick?
Well, I mean, it has to be Joe. If it's anybody else, I think there would be a riot.
Yeah, I would be flabbergasted if it's anyone else. But Alec?
I know I said a lot that Joe has been like the red herring that like everybody thinks is going to be medevac. She talked about being a medevac and then nothing's happened to him. But I think it's like obvious that it would be him because like, when Neil got medevac, it kind of wasn't a surprise because he hadn't been built up until that episode. It's like Joe hasn't been built up at all really, other than fighting with Peter. It's like, so he's the only logical explanation. The only one we've given any foreshadowing to is Aubrey, but I don't think that'll happen because she's been built up as like the possible winner, and so it's like Joe's the only option really.
Jordan?
I think it's wishful thinking that it'll be Joe, but I'm going to say Joe. And if it's not Joe, Alex said, like, we've seen Aubrey getting medical attention. So, that's a dark horse to be medevac is Aubrey, but probably Joe.
It would be so disappointing if it was Joe, because they took this gamble having a 71-year-old on the show, only for him to get medevaced. But he has
still
survived.
There's
Get
still
better back
10
to the
days
finale.
left. I mean,
Like, all right.
yeah.
Alright, anyway, that's that. I think we did good at covering everyone. I think the consensus is that it's really up in the air. I think the consensus is Joe's not winning, Aubrey is the front runner, but really I think our discussion we could find a lot of potentials in pretty much everyone. So it makes it an exciting end run for the season that it's not Worlds Apart where it's Michael Carolyn, and it's not Sam Mundell Sir where it's Natalie or John or Keith, and it's not Kaoh where it's either Tony or Spencer. It's exciting that there's at least a bit more variety. It's kind of a bit more similar to Cambodia, and there were a few more front runners. So I'm looking forward to the end game. It was, I don't know if that was a fun exercise or if that was stupid. Let us know if you liked that. Maybe that can become a semi-frequent thing in the Ozlet show, or maybe that was the dumbest thing we've ever done on Survivor Oz. I'm not sure, but it was a different way of looking at the episode, coming so close to the end, I think. So yeah, that's it. Subscribe, iTunes, all of that jazz. Nick, thanks for joining us. Only your second time, I've been told. I took your hosting role, but thanks for joining us. Any parting words that you got?
No, it was nice to chat with you all.
And good luck on Survivor New Zealand. I'm looking forward to seeing you win that season. Or be like Ty, either or. And Alec, first time since some sort of Amazing Racing or whatever. Parting words, was that a dumb exercise? Are you looking forward to the rest of the season?
That's for them to comment about. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. This season has been good so far as like an amazing season. Depends on who wins.
I've been really enjoying this season. I don't think a lot of people are putting it up as top 5 and everything. I don't think it's been groundbreaking in any way. Yeah, it's fun.
I think it's
middle,
better than Cambodia, upper middle of the pack, like, Panama, that type of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's nothing groundbreaking, but there's also not too many criticisms about it.
Not a Kaoh.
No, it's not a Kaoh, and I prefer Sam Wendell, so I'm probably alone in that. But it's a good season. I'm enjoying it.
Very similar to this one.
Yeah, and Jordan, thanks for joining once again.
Yeah, I liked what we did, and I think it's funny that this season there's still 10 days left with the final 6, and last season there were only 3 days left.
Yeah.
On the final 6. Or
really
maybe 4 days. I don't know.
Yeah,
there were 4
will it
days
be a
left.
final 3 or a final 2?
I'm thinking final 2. I also think this medevac. I also think this last medevac could be on day 38 or even day 39. That would be disappointing.
I really hope the medevac isn't a whole episode. I hope that there's also a vote out, because that would be so lackluster. Joe gets medevaced and that's it. Anyway, looking forward to next week. Next week, hopefully there's a separate Oztopsy and an Ozlet show. Maybe Nick can redeem himself in terms of hosting and I can shut up for once. I think it will be me and Colin on the Oztopsy, but I may be joined by someone else because Colin may be preoccupied with new life in the world. I'm not sure. And Ozlet show, stay tuned for who will be hosting that one. And we are hoping to have more fans on before the end of the season. That segment seemed to work. So stay tuned. Let us know messages on Twitter or Facebook if you want to join, because we'll have you. There's only 3 episodes, so we'll try and fit you in, but we're always excited to hear from the fans. So let us know. And of course, comment your thoughts on the website or on social media, because we always enjoy reading it. Sorry we couldn't have 2 episodes, but I think we've done good. And with that, thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you next time on The Trains. Goodbye.